Hi there, my name is Greg Niemer. I am a volunteer here at Orangevale History Museum, and this is an ongoing series where we are capturing the history that's being made today for the archives for tomorrow. Today we are going to be sitting down with Supervisor Sue Frost, who is 6 days away from ending her term, and just getting some insight about her experience. I hope that you enjoy it. What could you tell me, or how could you describe, just starting off the bat, with what the Board of Supervisors does and are responsible for?
Oh, that's a big question. Well, I was elected to the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors. I think there's about 58 counties in California. And in Sacramento, we have a little over 10 or 11,000 employees, 38 or 9 departments. We oversee, at the board of director level, we oversee policy that guides the county. So we have a board, a 5-member board, and then we have a county executive who works at, for the board, and the county council works for the board. And then we're not really involved in the day-to-day employee personnel. The chain of command goes down from there. But what we do is we vote on policy that provides guidance for everything that delivers services to the people of the county. And so that's, stuff like sewer, water, air quality, the flood control district, regional boards that we work on, transportation, waste, solid waste. Most recently, we're getting into organic waste. We have 3 airports in Sacramento County, so we oversee the airport operations. And there's probably public safety, human services, child and adult protective services, human assistance. We probably have more that I'm forgetting about. Veteran service, we have a veteran service officer at the Sacramento County that connects veterans with their services. And I'm trying to think, transportation agencies.
So if it's
public health.
If it's a public service, that's something that the Board of Supervisors oversees and essentially guides.
Right, and really, we oversee the budget that, appropriates funds or plans and appropriates funds. And we set, I'm going to say, not policy, but, we from time to time vote on resolutions that may not be law or an ordinance, but they set the stage for, what this board wants to see happen in this county. And when that happens, it has an impact on how people act in different areas of the county to make that happen. I'm gonna probably go too deep into this, but an example of that would be when we voted that racism is a public health emergency, then almost every board identified that as a systemic issue that needed to be dealt with, and they went out and voted to hire consultants to see how we could improve how we act in Sacramento County and how we make sure everybody is treated equally. That's just an example.
Mm-hmm. And you were mayor of Citrus Heights, right?
Yes, I was on the Citrus Heights City Council for 1 term, and I'll just kind of known for just saying it like it is. They say it's a part-time job, and it doesn't pay much, but it did take a bite out of my business, and so I needed to either get back to business or figure out how I could do what I really enjoyed, which was public service. And so when the then Supervisor Roberta McGlashan decided to retire, I said, well, this is it. I gave up, I essentially gave up my seat, because if I didn't win, I'd be out, and to run for supervisor, and I got lucky and I won.
That actually, one of the questions I wanted to ask later, it kind of is circling around right now, so I'll just ask it. I was curious a little bit about what some of the insights and challenges were going from the private sector to the public sector, and that transition that you're talking about, with it being a part-time job that supposedly was a part-time job that started to take more. What could you tell me about that for other people that are looking to make that leap into public office?
The first challenge is that in order to have the opportunity to serve the people, you have to win the campaign. And the campaign and the job are two different things. And there are so many extraordinary people in the world, but not everyone knows how to go out and market themselves, or is willing to work that hard to win the campaign, or can get that many people to interview with that many people. Basically, a campaign is you going out and doing a personal interview with the voters, and you interview with thousands of people and try to get enough votes to win. So that's the first obstacle. Then if you actually win, you then have to figure out the job. And your question, the way you stated it, gives me a reason to think that you're very astute, because the public sector is very different than the private sector. In my personal life, I was self-employed most of my life. My husband and I had a mortgage company, and when you're self-employed with a small business, your goal is to get enough money coming in so that you can get paid and meet all of your obligations. And if there's not enough money coming in, you make more money. You figure out how to make more money so you can grow,
And it's also very you-driven. Like, you can just take care of your own and you're good. If your business is thriving, you don't have to necessarily answer to a lot of people, just your employees and your clients, your customers, and that's it.
Right. And in the public sector, it's not so much about making money as it is about spending money well. Mm-hmm. And also doing it in a way that's transparent, and also capturing the opportunities of money. And this is something that something that kind of bothers me, that's happened over decades, is that we have this growing government that, there's just so many small things to administer with all the, regulatory environment that we have. I call it the trifecta of failure, which is taxation, regulation, and litigation. And you get kind of caught up in all that, and you're spending all your money on that, and that has a way of squeezing out services and making it harder for constituents to really understand what are they doing. And a lot of constituents will just throw up their hands and say, I can't make a difference, or I don't have time. I'm trying to survive.
It breaks the trust of where are my tax dollars going? And it's really hard to answer that because, there's so many different bureaucratic hoops to jump through. You can't even say, like, well, here is a tit for tat of how it happened. The more regulation, the more, taxation. That makes sense.
The question you asked, though, was, and one of the obstacles was, when I went to try to understand that, when I was running for office, I looked at the budget. Then I looked at the budget for every city around my city when I first ran for city council in Citrus Heights. Then I called the finance directors to ask questions about their budget and understand their income and how it worked. And the challenge and then I compared the budget, the actual budget, to the CAFR, which is, the accounting that we have to do to make sure that it's transparent and that, it's kind of complicated. And it's easy to understand why the average person wouldn't take that deep dive. But when you told people that you would do your best to research and analyze every issue so that you can make the best decisions possible, you have to do it. And it is it's a big job, public service, but it's the most interesting thing I've ever done, and it's the greatest opportunity of my life. And I thank God. I don't think I could have done it I don't think I could have got there if it wasn't for God. I give all the glory to God and my husband and all my friends who supported me to help me get there. But and I'm rambling, but I don't think it'll end here for me. Even though I didn't run, I chose not to run. I said I'm retiring. I don't think I'm going to retire ever. But I will take some downtime, but there will be, in my heart, I thought I was born free, and I will always be fighting for American freedom, and for what our founders intended it to be.
I'd like to hear a little bit more about what has been so gratifying about the position, about the role, not just the campaigning, but the actions and being able to be involved in the community in District 4, which is, just so we clarify, District 4 is Rio Linda, Citrus Heights, Folsom, Orangevale, what am I forgetting right now?
Rio Linda, Elverta, North Highlands, Antelope, Citrus Heights, Orangevale, Folsom, and Rancho Murieta.
It's huge.
Yes, it's about 395,000 people, I think.
Wow. Yeah. So yeah, if you could tell me what's been gratifying about the experience for you personally.
I think probably the people having the ability to advocate for different areas of my district. I have a unique district in that I have there's about 7 areas. Some of them are more rural in nature, and some of them are more highly educated, business oriented, like Rancho Murieta and Folsom. But then we have areas that have different needs, and what's been really exciting is that I've been able to advocate for what the people want in those areas. Like in Orangevale, they wanted a bigger library, and it was really hard. There was no money for a bigger library. And in the end, it was gratifying. I wasn't able to get them the library that they had dreamed of and that I said I would fight for. It just came down to there wasn't enough population and enough money for a $15 million library in Orangevale. But what we did get was a really nice, bigger library with a community room and a kitchen area and a place for the Friends of the Library. And in the end, it came down to a conversation with the community to say, if you can't be with the one you want, love the one you're with, type thing. That's kind of what we did.
Well, yeah.
It was like we can't get, but we can get this, and they were like, great. They said that's great.
This goes back to like the first thing that you and I just talked about when you got here, which was the idea that like you just have to kind of go in a direction to get something to happen. You don't always get where you. It's the same thing.
It took years, and I had to read the JPA agreement 5 times, and I had to go back and forth to the point where I finally just said, why don't you just give us a library and I'll go away? Just help us. And they did. And I went away. It was perfect. It was magical. But I had to fight for 4 or 5 years to get that. And it wasn't an easy task. And there's other ways that we've advocated. Like I was able to advocate for, we've had all these wildfires in California that have devastated communities. And people may not realize it, but there's some areas of Sacramento County that are at high, they're not registered under CAL FIRE as high risk, but they're risk. And they are surrounded by high risk areas, which means if there was a wind that blew in a certain direction, like with the Santa Rosa fire, it could blow through Folsom or Rancho Murieta and just sweep over them so fast they couldn't get out. And so we advocated for, home hardening. Commissioner Lara helped us with insurance opportunities. We are now we got a $4.5 million grant to mitigate some of the biomass around Rancho Murieta. You don't think about it, but those short grasses, they don't seem like much, but if you get a certain wind, that can pick up and just spread so fast. And so we're now actually just voted to go for a grant with our OES, which is our emergency services, to hire a county employee that's going to coordinate the everything around mitigation for fire risk in Sacramento County. So those are the kinds of things that you feel good about, because they ask you to, they come and they ask you to advocate, and you can pick it up or not. And another one that we did was the mobile integrated health. We have a problem in our emergency rooms because we have so many homeless people and mental health issues that come into the ER, and they're standing, they call it wall time. And the first responders can't drop them off unless they're accepted by the hospital, and the hospitals can't accept them because they don't have beds. So they're waiting for the beds to clear, and there's no place for the mental health. So, it's an issue of, okay, how can we change the system a little bit? And we had this conversation for years. Ever since I was installed in 2017, we had the conversation around, is there a way that we can manage those people without bringing them to the ER? Because when you bring a homeless person, there are some homeless people who cost the taxpayers over $100,000 a year because they call the ER for a refill on their prescription, and the minute you walk in there, the minute the fire engine comes and picks you up, it turns into thousands of dollars instantly, tens of thousands. So. It ultimately ends up being a cost to the taxpayers. So that was fun. I was able to get $1 million to help with that project and give a leg up to Metro Fire, who's doing amazing work.
I'm smiling only right now because I know, I see you going into the how to get stuff done. That's just how you look at the world, which is beautiful. I'm curious if some of that was kind of, you look at the problem and see how there can be ways to fix the problem or address a problem in a tangible way, because that's essentially what you've been tasked to do. I'm curious, because there's so much diversity in District 4, if there were aspects of the people and also the society that you grew up in, that you're part of, if it was enlightening from your position and seeing a problem from a new viewpoint that you just had no idea about, or even just what you've gotten from the people different from them when you were in the private sector. Does that make sense?
Oh yes, I can give you a perfect example of that. It's hard to believe, but I had a constituent in Orangevale who came up and asked me, Sue, when we pay our taxes, when we pay taxes from Orangevale, does that go into the bank account and come back to Orangevale? He knows who he is when he watches this. And you all probably know him too. But I said, well, that's complicated. That was my answer, because it is super complicated. When they, an example of that is when they went to do that SB1 tax for roads. My staff at the time were able to get a great big poster that showed the money flow from SB1 and where the money how it would flow through the system, and what departments it would go through to be administered. And there was money that went to roads, there was money that went to parks and libraries, and, you know, because on every one of those taxes, they have to get all those different entities to buy into the tax to support it, to get it to pass. And so you can't just, it's so hard, it's so complicated, just to do a tax to fix the roads. And I've always been a tax fighter because California is the top tax charging state in the nation. And I wish there was a way that we could approach it in a better way, where if we do a tax, we're tackling a specific issue, and we go and we fix the issue, and then when that's done, you can't, when you're doing that, you can't redirect the money somewhere else at a later date, and when it's done, you sunset the tax. So there's things that I look for to decide if this is a good tax, or is this just, they're telling us they're going to do this, but in the end, they're going to switch it up and the money's going to go somewhere else, and it's never going to fix the road, and everyone's going to be asking us, well, why did we vote on that? It's the roads are not getting fixed, which is the question I've had for the last 8 years as a county supervisor. So that's hard. That's really hard. It's hard to explain where, you know, the money goes. You can do the deep dive and show them a picture, which I have done, and I guess it does have an impact, because I think people deserve to know the truth, and I think sometimes, you know, politicians don't tell the whole truth, because there's pressure. You know, there's pressure because you know, there's such a high cost for development that, you know, builders can't just come in and build a home at a lower price because of the government regulatory framework that has is raising the cost of everything. That means the cost has to be, they're not going to do it for nothing. They're not going to pay to build houses for us. And so it's kind of backfired. It kind of backfires on the constituent, because it always comes down to the constituent. If the grocery store can't get tortillas for this price and they have to pay more, they're going to have to charge more to sell it or package it with smaller amount of tortillas, which is what they did in the last few years, by the way. They went from 12 tortillas to 10, which is really irritating, because when you make a casserole, you need 12. Yeah, right. It's
ruined.
Perfect for 12. Now I have to buy 2.
Yeah. You know, I think there's a certain level, I heard it in there, the idea of transparency becomes challenging. The system itself is not always designed to be transparent or a one-for-one. I was thinking, this is more my own experience with, I lived in Colorado. I moved out here about 1.5 years ago. In Colorado, beautiful. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Are you sure Colorado could use you as well? I mean, you got
no,
there.
Arkansas.
Sorry, not Alabama. Arkansas. Arkansas, I can get this right.
Arkansas is how you're supposed to say it, yeah.
In Colorado, we legalized marijuana. And that was a big deal, right?
Yeah.
And
I heard about it.
Well,
I read about it.
That was one of the one-for-ones that they said, we're going to tax at this level, and all the money is going specifically to grade schools and to the school system. And so much money that, like, the schools started like having way too much funds, but it was very easy to see the one-for-one of, oh, you taxed us on this, and now we have $168 million this year surplus because of. It became a lot easier to see the impact, which I think changed opinion there on that particular policy. But it's a lot harder to say, well, I don't see the roads being fixed. Well, yeah, because there's 12 different things that your funds are going to, and those things may not be all in at the same time. Which
and also the problem is that we have the new environmental laws change the what I call the color of the money. And what that means is that the federal and the state government will give money toward roads as long as you're doing what they want done with it, which is complete streets and traffic softening and finding ways to get people out of cars and get them other modes of transportation into the that scenario. And so road maintenance is not sexy, and it doesn't qualify. You know, nobody wants to do. There's no money for the road maintenance.
I humbly disagree. I love road maintenance.
Well, yeah, the people love it, but I mean, it's hard to get money for it.
I hear that.
In Sacramento County, we actually, over the last several years, in our budgeted extra $20 million here, and millions of dollars extra just for road maintenance, because the challenge we have is that the roads, when you don't maintain them, they become exponentially more expensive to fix. And an example of that is when I became a supervisor in 2017, we had $450 million, I think, of deferred road maintenance repairs. And then in I think it was 2019 or 20, it was up to 795, and now it's over $1 billion. It's growing. We can't just fix the worst roads. We have our transportation people are awesome. They thought of a way that we could try to keep the ones that are in fairly good shape, maintain those, because that's cheaper to fix, and go after some of the ones that are really bad, so that we're saving ourselves some money. We're getting ahead of it,
So I do want to I want to jump out of policy for a second, because I still have a lot of curiosities, and I want to honor the time that you've already given me is amazing. I do want to know a couple of other things. One of them that's not on the list of what I asked you about that I'm curious about is you and your perspective on what leadership really means from your vantage point, not just for yourself and how it drives you to be a leader, but also you're surrounded by a lot of other leaders that may not agree with your perspective about certain decisions, but you see leadership in the communities that you serve, as well as the other district managers or supervisors and whatnot. I'm curious about what you've learned by going into public, what you've learned about the word leadership, honestly, and how it's changed or shifted over your experience.
I don't know if it's changed or shifted, but I think what I would say, I believe in business, I've always felt that the path to success in business was, say what you can do and then do it. And when I started as a county supervisor, one of my promises, someone walked up to me and said, "Don't make promises you can't keep, because you will be so sorry." And I know what they mean. And one of my promises early on was that I will never forget who I work for. So, leadership to me is having a sense of, who you are and what you believe in, but being willing to look at all sides of an issue, and willing to listen. I think listening is more important than talking. A lot of people talk, but their talk and their walk don't match. And to me, if a true leader, it will seek out more information, so that when they're making that decision, they can actually make an educated decision around it. And one of the paths in policy making, what I did to try to keep myself on task with that was I would always ask, is it constitutional? Because we take an oath to uphold the Constitution of the state and the United States. And that oath means something. It really means something. You can, when you take the oath, it's treason if you don't live up to the oath.
That's pretty wild to think about.
So is it constitutional? Can we afford it? And is it good for my community? If it's not one of those, if one of those is a no, I'm probably not going to support it. Yeah. And so that kind of gave me a way to kind of analyze, bring it down to something I do every time. I didn't always make all the right moves, and there were times when I did make them. One time I did vote for something that was unconstitutional, and I think it was because I was tired. And I was trying to help. I don't know.
I don't have those sorts
blew
of
it.
mistakes in my work.
And I actually called my political advisor and I said, I have to write about it because I write about all the good things I do. I need to tell them. He said, well, if you write about it, the only thing you can do is apologize. And I said, well, then, okay, I'm going to do that. So
I feel like that's part of leadership too, though, accountability.
Accountability, being honest. I think, if people will not follow someone, people won't follow someone they don't trust. And if people won't follow you, you can't lead. Yeah. Leadership is service. It's not you talking down or being over them. It's you supporting, working for them. In America, our government our founding fathers set up government to protect our constitutional rights. That was the whole purpose of government, to protect our unalienable rights. That means nobody can step on our rights. And government that's what government is supposed to do. I'm not sure government's doing that right now, not like they should be. And that burns inside of me every day, and till the day I die, will be working on that. But leadership, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit emotional because this you hit a chord in me. Leadership is service, and it's hard work. It's humbling, and when you get elected when you go up into politics, and I packed my Black's Law 4, which is one of my favorite books, because if you go back and look at words, the meaning of words, you'll learn that the English language is easy to change. It's easy to just change it up and give a word two different meanings so that you can dumb down society. And if you go back and look at the laws that have made in the past and the meaning of the words at that time, you'll see that we aren't being always told. We haven't always learned what's actually happened there. We need to know more.
Yeah, that definitely rings true. With everything that you've said up to this, I wouldn't imagine any other answer to leadership from you.
And I just want to say one more thing about that. It's really hard in politics because you get elected and you go onto a board, and they like to the board wants to think of everyone as colleagues, and we're working together and we're being collaborative. But I never really saw it that way. I felt like I worked for the people. My team was the people. I'm team people. Yeah. My team isn't other politicians. And working together, but I know you have to be collaborative, but I mean, that might have been the one thing that I wasn't as good at, because I was so intent on doing the right thing for the people, and I think sometimes you can be asked, if you give me this, I'll give you that, and then you have to ask yourself if that's the kind of person you want to be.
Yeah. God, that's tough.
It's kind of hard. Yeah. It's a hard conversation.
So, we're at the time, but I do want to just do a little bit of a quick, your personal history, what you're willing to or comfortable with saying. Where did you grow up? What sort of life was that like? Or what was your experience? Because you grew up here in Citrus Heights, right?
I grew up as a little girl until I was 9 years old in Orangevale, and we used to play in the mud in the fields. And we moved to Citrus Heights in 1963. My mom married my stepdad when I was 5. I didn't meet my real father until I was 28. so my stepdad raised me, and I lived in Citrus Heights. I went away to college and then came back to Citrus Heights, and then I lived in Folsom for 20 or 21 years. And so my district is, and I had a business, the man I married over 40 years ago now, who's the light of my life. His name is Jack Frost. And he had a mortgage business, and he taught me the mortgage business. That's how I learned it. And he had a business in Citrus Heights. So we had our business and our home in my district throughout most of our lives. This is the first time we're leaving the district.
That's a huge.
And he's 78 and I'm 68, so it's like a big deal.
Yeah.
Our kids are like, wow, you guys are adventurous.
Yeah, no, I applaud that ability to jump, especially because you're so ingrained here. Like, nobody knows me here, so when I left 20 years ago, they were like, Greg who? That was easy. But like, you're leaving behind a legacy, and
what a nice thing to say.
that is a thing. And I mean, this is where your roots are very much from, and they're never going to let go, no matter how far away you are.
Yeah, my heart will always be here, and who knows? I mean, if we don't like it there, we've always been real estate investors. We'll probably come back to somewhere in the foothills, El Dorado County or Placer County, just because it's a little further out up in the mountains. But yeah.
I'm going to ask one final question. What are some of your favorite places in Orangevale that you would love to go for yourself, or in Citrus Heights, anywhere in District 4 that really stands out that you love to visit?
Oh.
Over the years. Doesn't have to be anything.
Okay.
Like, it could be a park, it could be a street, whatever. Like, for me, Orangevale Park will always have a special place in my heart because I went to CASA. And so I would wander through there in the rain, if it was cold. I loved going through Orangevale Park. I played Frisbee golf when I was a kid, so love that place. But is there anywhere that for you love to get to or love to spend time in?
Well, we've spent a lot of time in Rush Park. We live in Citrus Heights, so we've spent a lot of time in Rush Park. There was almost never a week that went by that we didn't have a Desi's beef bread and beer. Unfortunately, it's closed now, but the guy that carried on is really good too, so we still get his food. I love that food.
That bread.
Oh,
the
yeah.
Bread.
Sangak bread.
Oh,
so good.
Yeah.
And
I still have some in my freezer.
Yeah, and our son did, the Frisbee golf was our son. He's 51, my stepson, but he used to go down there and play Frisbee golf. And
Oh, yeah.
American River Parkway, we've done a lot of bike riding on American River Parkway, or just going, my husband goes down with his kids.
Mm-hmm.
I don't go down and sit by the river because I can't sit still that long, but they do and they like it. I could never just sit down there and just do that, but I mean, I want to be able to do that, but just saying.
Yeah.
It's hard to
Hey,
slow down.
you know yourself. That's good.
Yeah.
That's great. How about this? When I left Denver, I made a bucket list of like my favorite go-to restaurants I had to hit before I left. Are there any that you've got 6 days right now? 5 days?
For me, it's not the restaurants as much as it is the people.
Yeah.
I still have people coming at me who want to connect before we leave, and I don't know how I'm going to get it all done. And I'm already receiving invites to special events that are coming up next year that are going to be really special, like the amphitheater in Rush Park that the Citrus Heights Community Marching Band is building as a memory of Kathy Cook, who was the founder, who was she and Bill are very special. And we're trying to figure out how are we going to, we may not make it to everything, but we definitely will come back. We'll come back and rent a house for a month or something.
That's
And
fair.
that way we can have everyone over and we'll have a party.
Well, Supervisor Sue Frost, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm so glad that we found the time to do this, especially because I know you've got so little time left here, and I'm really appreciative of it. And I know the Orangevale History Project is very thankful as well for everything that you've done.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and also comment down below if there's somebody else that is here supporting the community of Orangevale and beyond that you think it would be good to have a little chat with. Thank you so much. Have a good one.